In today's video I'm gonna draw this little scenery here with ballpoint pen, and I'm gonna talk about how you can get a lot of detail into a drawing like this without actually putting in too much effort into the small little details themselves. Why contrast matters more than the actual details, and how you can use texture or how you can create texture very easily and consequently use that to create the illusion of a very detailed drawing, when in reality you didn't spend that much time on it at all. I'm gonna do this drawing here in this little sketch pad of mine. The only thing I've done in here are those spiders that I've sketched out. That's a separate video. But yeah, that's the second subject matter that I have here in this sketch pad. Been a long time since I've done a scenery like this, since I've did anything in perspective, because I want to practice tattooing. Maybe you've seen this one video of me where I try out my tattoo machine and familiarize myself with this whole thing. Because of that, I've done more symbolistic stuff, more things that are a little bit easier to tattoo, so I haven't done a lot of sceneries lately. But I tend to be pretty okay at them when I actually do them. Sometimes in a little bit more guidelines than other times. But for this one, as you can see, the graphite drawing goes down pretty easily, and I nail the perspective pretty well, which just comes from sketching out a lot of these sceneries. So yeah, you can see me just sketching all of this out with my graphite pencil. And yeah, this video is mostly about details and shading and texture, but keep in mind you also always need to practice things like this. Good, and now I take my ballpoint pen. The first thing that I do, obviously, is the things most in the foreground. Now I'm starting out with this power pole here in front of it. I'm just having these lines down, so just when I get into the shading and the details and the texture and everything, that I don't accidentally draw on that area where the pole is. So I'm just locking that in basically for myself to see. So I have like a border for me to do everything in. And yeah, I'm starting out with these, not bushes, but with this plant that's like growing on the frontier of this building. And with that, and this is actually the first very big point that I'm trying to make here with this video on how you can get a lot of details. As you can see, this bush isn't or this plant isn't particularly well detailed. From a little bit far away, it looks it looks like it has a ton of detail, just like the wooden planks here, when in reality here with this perspective going really close so you can see everything, there's not a ton of detail actually going on. It's just lines and texture, and for the bush, where it looks like from a little bit far away, it looks like I've drawn in every single leaf, which is, yeah, definitely something I would have done when I was starting out, you know. When I was starting out with drawing like 7 years ago, I wanted to create these ultra detailed drawings, and I tried to map out every single leaf, every single branch, and every single tiny little thing shaded individually. And what I've learned, especially from sketching, is that you don't need this to create the illusion of detail. We have to keep in mind that detail is actually just an illusion. And this is something that I still struggle with, and I'm gonna talk about it here in this video because, well, not just for you, the viewer, but also for myself to analyze it a little bit. And these bushes are a great example because because more important than the details is the actual contrast. Let me write that down for myself really quick. I'm gonna do this. Contrast over detail. Because not many people are gonna step really close to your drawing, or they're gonna zoom in necessarily, and when they do, they find that the detail that they thought they were seeing is actually just good contrast with tiny little details thrown in there. Like, for example, the shading of the wood here on the side or the roof. It's just one big texture that I have created by going over it with the ballpoint pen over and over again without really paying attention to the individual details themselves. But then you add shading to it, making it look three-dimensional, having our human eyes that are adjusted to light and shadow think that there is something three-dimensional going on, and then think it's more detailed than it actually is. It's kind of weird to explain, but detail is an illusion. And when you're starting out, or one thing that I would like to, well, tell my younger self when I was starting to take drawing seriously like 7-8 years ago, is that you don't have to do actual details, like in the sense of that you have to go in with, I used to have these super tiny fine liner pencil, like 0.05 millimeters, like the tiniest ones you can find, and I was trying to go in and do every single crack in the wood individually, and every single leaf individually, and then shade every single leaf individually, which led to a ton of drawings that I just gave up upon, because there's just no way you can finish a drawing like this in a reasonable time. And so then I started out to sketch, and I started to experiment with my ballpoint pens, with my ink pens, with my fine liners, with thicker fine liners, and I figured out that you don't have to be a surgeon. Like, you're not a surgeon, you're not going into your drawing and doing every single tiny little thing. I mean, the branches here of the tree, they're a little bit of an exception, but by, going in and having them tightly packed around each other, they look more detailed, and it looks like there's more of them than there actually is, right? But yeah, also shading those tree trunks, for example. As you can see, I'm just creating like a basic wood texture, but just doing strokes back and forth. That's a great thing about organic things like trees. There's just this pattern, and when you keep to this pattern, it doesn't matter if the lines are apart a little bit more in one place than on the other. It's a tree, it's an organic thing that's gonna flow and grow in different directions. And then I go in with some shading and make some points lighter and some darker, and make it look three-dimensional, adding that on top of the texture that I have created. And because of that, it gives this illusion of detail that's not actually there, when it's just a pretty sloppily and quickly created texture on top, and on top of that some contrast, some lighter and darker areas. So I'm not an art professor. I never had formal training in art or anything. I'm actually quite different from an artist. Actually not, because I work as a metalwork technician, and you need to be creative in that job, even though you need to keep to numbers and formulas. Is that it? When you calculate something, you need to know, how many screws will you need to uphold a certain structure that you're building, and you need to calculate those things, and how fast you need to go over a certain kind of metal with a certain tool, what's the rotations per minute for the certain tool, and whatever. And so you need to stick to very strict rules, but that doesn't mean that you can't be a little bit creative, and you need a lot of problem solving for that kind of job, especially metalwork technicians. Nothing goes like it's planned, or like the engineers in the office have given you the plans. It's never gonna really work out that way in reality. So you need to be a little bit creative and solve some problems. And the same thing goes for art. There is an academic way. There are formulas in a way to approach things, like the rule of thirds, or this rule and that rule, and if the light is sitting here, then the light needs to go there. That is actually a good rule to keep in mind, but it's not something you can really learn, and like for school, like for a test. It's something you need to develop a feeling for, and you just need to have some problem solving, and yeah. But I'm just rambling on here. It's much easier than I make it out to be, actually. So just experiment with textures, and then on top of those textures, add light and shadow. Don't go too overboard with the texture, because otherwise it will be too dark, and it will be more difficult to then make it out to be three-dimensional. I hope you enjoyed me rambling on about this. It doesn't matter. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I'll see you again, okay, around here on the channel. Take care, and bye-bye.